What is the thing we don't talk about in your family? My biological dad showed up last summer, 27 years of never having contact with me, and he comes out of nowhere. Turned out he just wanted me as a bone marrow/kidney donor for his other son. I agreed to be checked if I was match, not gonna blame the 10-year-old kid for his father being a competitor for biggest douche, but my family and I don't talk about it, because I went behind my mother's back to talk him in the first place after he showed up. So were you a match? No, but I was added to the donor registry so someone might be out there who can be saved by my blood. I have an uncle who got a girl pregnant and then ended up in jail. While he was in jail, his brother, my other uncle, ended up marrying the girl and raising the child as his own. Now my first uncle is out of jail, and has to deal with the fact that his child is being raised by his brother. It's awkward. Oh yeah, I feel ya. I had a cousin that got preggers with one dude. When he was locked up, she got pregnant with his brother. So the kids are cousins and siblings. Not awkward at all. That my great uncle likes kids. It suddenly made a whole lot more sense that none of his adult daughters were ever married/had a serious long-term relationship and are overweight with self-esteem issues. Every other aspect of his life is perfectly normal, and I would have never expected that from him. There was a court case before I was born that was dismissed. My mother never even let me meet him until early this year, because she didn't want to take the chance that he might act indecently towards me. Is the great uncle your mom's uncle? Hopefully she never experienced his nastiness. Yes, it's my mom's uncle. As far as I know, she didn't. My grandma and her brother didn't get along very well as children and actively despised each other their entire lives. They never spoke on the phone, and the first time they saw each other in around 40 years was at my great-grandma's funeral earlier in the year. My sister's eating disorder. She eats a ton and goes on to vomit. She goes jogging for 1 hour or more per day, every day, no breaks even though her knees hurt like crazy, and refuses to eat any carbs, fruits and vegetables only. I seem to be the only one that realizes the magnitude of this. I seem to be the only one that thinks of this as a sickness, not as a temporal phase. It's like this for 3 years already, no idea when my parents noticed, in the life of a young woman. Whenever I say something, I get shushed at and later have to justify my insensitive behavior in front of my parents. So I just kind of gave up on arguing. Not sure what I can do to change things without disrupting the family. It was Thanksgiving. My parents had recently returned from Hawaii. My dad wanted to show everyone the photos. He connected the digital camera to the giant flat screen TV and started up a slideshow of my mother, naked, in their bedroom. He scrolled through several and then quickly turned it off and said, "Whoops, wrong cartridge." I was 21 and my boyfriend was with me for the holidays for the first time. My mom started crying. My boyfriend went silent. I just said, "Oh my God." Somehow my 100-year-old grandma missed the whole thing. We never speak of it. If it is brought up, my mother will yell, "We swore to never mention that," and get red-faced. Edit, y'all, my mom would be mortified that I told the internet. Let's all agree to never mention it to her. My grandfather's secret girlfriend that he has had since like the 70s. Is grandma still around? 'Cause I don't know, that's almost like 40 to 50 years of being together. Yes, she is. She knows about it but looks the other way. Polyamorous maybe? Loves both girls, or is he sticking with grandma for other reasons like divorce is hard? I'm not sure about his feelings for the other woman because, as the thread title say, we don't talk about it, but he does love my grandma. And polyamorous makes him sound too hippie, like he's just a married dude with a girlfriend. It really wasn't all that uncommon for guys in their 20s and 30s, and the 50s to 60s has just lasted longer than most. I thought it was that my aunt was hardcore into drugs. Turns out nobody knew. To be fair, I didn't know per se, but it was so obvious that I thought everybody knew but didn't mention it. My family was blown away when she got busted going to Florida to buy pills so she could resell them here. I was like, yeah, duh. Reminds me of my cousin's ex-wife. She always looked zonked out, and worked at a nursing home, so I figured she was stealing meds. Everyone was super confused after she collapsed at my other cousin's wedding after having a few drinks. Apparently she had a lot of painkillers in her system. When I was 9, my aunt invited my family to her wedding. I'll call the guy she was marrying Phil. It was the first time we met him. On the wedding day, Phil convinced my parents to go take a break and get breakfast together under the pretense that he would watch me in my family's hotel room. He molested me. When I told my parents and my aunt called me a liar, along with several other choice words. I was accused by her of being jealous and for trying to ruin her wedding. My parents refused to press charges so as not to upset my aunt. To this day, my entire family refuses to talk about it. Please, tell me that your aunt isn't still married to this guy, and you either have to see him at family reunions or not see your family all together at one time. She isn't. When I found out that they had a daughter together, I took it upon myself to fly to Georgia from California at the age of 17 to meet my little cousin because I had a really bad feeling. Phil wouldn't acknowledge me, but he kept luring my 3-year cousin into a dark bedroom. I went in and grabbed her, and she refused to let go of me for 4 days. I called local authorities because I was pretty sure she was being sexually abused. I was right. My aunt finally had to acknowledge the monster she married, and she ended up getting remarried to another man. I have no relationship with my parents. The numerous suicides. It's finally getting to the point where they admit that these people even existed, let alone died. One of my great uncles killed himself before I was born, and if not for all the group photos and my great aunt being a decent human, I wouldn't have ever known his name. My mom likes to pretend they died in car accidents or heart attacks. It made for some real confusion once I got older. Oh man, we have one pretty devastating attempt in our family that no one acknowledges or even talks about. So the story goes. My 2 cousins who are brother and sister got caught having sex. Turned out they were in a full-blown sexual relationship for years. Ben was 19 and Ann was 20 when it all came to light. They were both sexually abused by a family friend when they were children and bonded. Is that the right term in this situation? Over that. So my auntie was mortified, told them that it wouldn't be tolerated and that she would be sending Ben to live with relatives in Australia. Ben was so devastated by being found out and the thought of being parted from his sister that he hung himself. My aunt discovered him midway through the attempt. She grabbed him by the legs and held him up screaming for help until a neighbor heard and called an ambulance. Ben didn't die but suffered a severe brain injury as a result. He is now in his 40s and is basically a vegetable. He cannot speak, he can't walk, he drools constantly and makes loud unintelligible noises. Breaks my goddamn heart. No one ever speaks of Anne. She has vanished. Doesn't want to talk to anyone in the family. It's a pretty sad and messed up situation. When it all happened, the story was that Ben broke his neck in an accident. I only found out the full story from my dad last year after more than 20 years. And almost bankrupt my grandpa/dad's business when she worked for them. She gloated about all her great trips because of her husband's great job. Turns out she was stealing $10,000 to $15,000 a year for a few years before they found out. This was at a time when the business was already struggling. She is somehow still in grandma and grandpa's will. If that was my daughter, she'd be out of my life after that. And luckily 20 years later the business is doing great. Nice man. Do you or your dad hate her? No one but grandma talked to her for years. Finally, she started coming to family events like Thanksgiving, but it was always awkward. Thankfully she moved across the country and none of us have seen her in half a decade. Grandma still talks to her weekly. Maybe it'll change if I have kids, but I don't think I could forgive someone who betrayed the family like that. My wedding day. It was a 6-month marriage to an emotionally abusive woman that ended with infidelity, depression, and homelessness. I'm totally fine now, but I don't ever mention it. So no one else does. My grandpa has brought the wedding up a couple of times for necessary reasons, but refers to it as, that time we met you in the park. How did you become homeless? The person I married had basically guilted me into not working. I was totally financially dependent on her. By the time I finally left her, I had no money and had sold almost everything I owned. I never had to sleep outside, thankfully. I spent my days at the public library and my nights rotating through various kind friends and family who would let me crash on their couches until I got back on my feet. When I was about 5 years old, my mom, grandma, brother and I were about an hour from home, and we stopped to get gas. We went inside to pay, but we were 13 cents short. My mom told the clerk, "Be right back, I'll go get it from the car." So we all go back to the car, and my mom hands me 13 cents and asks me to go pay the clerk. I go inside and by now a line has formed. I waited in line, not realizing that I probably would have been fine to just go up to the front to just hand him the money. When I finally finished, I walk outside and I could see our minivan driving away. My family was nowhere to be found. They'd left without me, in an unfamiliar neighborhood, 50 miles from home. I got scared, but I can remember feeling like, surely this isn't as abnormal as it feels? They'll be right back. Right? So I began to cry, and I walked over and sat on a concrete slab next to the gas station. I'm not sure how long it was, but at least several minutes later I finally saw the van returning. When they pulled up, my mom was bawling and she began hugging and kissing me and apologizing. Apparently what happened was my brother, 7 years old, closed the heavy sliding door and my mom, hearing that sound, assumed it was after I'd crawled back in, so she started to drive away. After all, how long could it take me to deliver 13 cents? The story definitely makes my mother look pretty bad, but because I was so young when it happened, and it was so out of character for her, I was never really mad at her. So for the next 15 years or so we'd tell people that story and kinda laugh about it. My mom would laugh too. Turns out her laughter was forced. It tore her up inside any time we talked about it. She finally confessed to us how it made her feel, and we all just sorta agreed to never bring it up again. We weren't mad at her. We'd totally forgiven her for her mistake, and made sure she knew that, but she was never able to forgive herself. She's still around and is an amazing mother, we just never tell that story anymore. That super pro-life cousin's and aunt ran to get an abortion for my 16-year-old cousin when she got pregnant. I'm pro-life, unless I have to pay for raising the kid. More like, I'm pro-life, unless it will bring shame to my family. A lot of people in my family are alcoholics. It's okay to acknowledge that they drink a lot, but it's not okay to call them alcoholics, even when they do things like routinely pass out on their front lawn, getting a huge number of DUIs, drinking so much Labatt that the company sends them a flag and a lawn chair, getting fired from Fabricland for drunkenly screaming at customers then barfing on a quilt, or getting pulled over on a motorized beer cooler by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. All those incidents can be discussed so long as no one mentions alcoholism. Jesus, are you from Saskatchewan or Alberta? I'm from Alberta, but most of these incidents happened in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The fact that my girlfriend is older than my stepfather. So do you have a much older girlfriend or does your mom have a much younger husband? Both. Same. My stepdad is only 10 years older than me. He's 6 months older than my sister, and my brother was 3 years older than my stepdad. That was not fun for 14-year-old me when my mom left my dad for a 24-year-old. My great-grandfather's baby with his youngest granddaughter. He was 75 at the time and she was 14. My grandmother still blames the girl, stating that she was a loose little girl and clearly seduced my great-grandfather. My grandma almost gets a heart attack every time I mention to her that her father was a disgusting pig that preyed on the little girl and abused her. Edit. So many responses to this post. I'm glad I'm not the only that thinks my grandma's opinion of the situation is fucked. My mother told me the story, and since she was so young when it happened, there's a lot of details missing and stuff I simply don't know. To clarify, since there's some confusion, the victim was my grandma's niece, the rapist was the victim's grandfather, and the rapist was my grandma's father. I don't know what happened to the victim. She left El Salvador with her baby and were never heard from again. The victim's mother, my grandmother's sister, passed a few years later. She never told anyone where she had sent her daughter to. Holy fucking shit, this is the worst one I've read. How was this even allowed to happen? It's really disturbing and gross. The story my mom told me was that my mom's aunt, the girl's mother, left the girl to his care while she went to the main city to find work. Our family is from the very rural parts of El Salvador, and he was essentially free to abuse her since the mom would only come home a few times a month. No one really knew anything was going on until the pregnancy was visible. The girl's mother took her daughter's side and essentially tried to cover it up the best she could. She never pressed charges against my great-grandfather, but eventually opted out for sending her daughter to live outside of the country. That our father lied to our family about everything. Where he grew up, lived, militarily background, other family, jobs. We found out after he died, and never spoke of it again. It's been 10 years since he died. How did you find out? Was he a good guy? No, he was not. He was a horrible father and husband. He abused everyone around him. He broke my mother, who finally gave in to drugs. We only found out at the funeral. Can you share some more? I find this intense. I would not even know where to begin. I lived one life forward, only to understand it backwards. At the time it was extremely strange to go back to all the stories and try to put together the timeline of his life and see that what he told us was his life, couldn't have possibly been right. I personally was angry and felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. This is happening to me and my family currently. My mom had been waiting for some military payout for my father's exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam, which caused his many health problems and led to his death. She would get a monthly survivor's benefit. Lo and behold, we find out my father didn't serve 3 tours in Vietnam. He never left the US. He swore one of his kids from his first marriage wasn't his because he was in Vietnam when she was conceived. He is dead. My uncle he was supposed to have served a tour with is dead. My other uncle. Dead. My aunt has dementia and my grandparents are long since gone, as are my siblings' mother and grandparents. We have no idea where my father was during those years. I also just learned I may have a half-sibling too. The fact that my uncle is very likely schizophrenic, but since he thinks the voices he hears are from heaven, and the creatures he sees are from hell, we just say he's pious. My aunt developed schizophrenia. A few years later she was dead from a brain tumor. I wish they had done something when she showed signs, but no one ever talked about it. Just treated her with kid gloves when she was around. My uber-Catholic grandparents met when my grandpa was married. He left his wife, my grandmother got pregnant and they eloped in the 40s. My grandma was 18 and my grandpa was 27. He took her to her senior prom. No one knew about this until last year, and my uncle was born early. Apparently no one in my family can do math and never added up the birth and marriage dates. Oh, they can do the math. Even when they don't try to pass the kid off as early, and don't talk about it. Your uncle probably figured it out at some point. I realized I was a shotgun wedding baby one day sitting in class freshman year, when it hit me that there are not 9 months between November and April. And still it was never talked about until after I'd graduated. So they probably know. It's just hush hush. True, I guess. I mean, the grandkids. I remember asking my grandma about her wedding and her being really vague about it, but I never thought about it until I was an adult and did some research on Ancestry and realized dates didn't add up. And that there was a marriage license for my grandpa before his marriage to my grandma. The parrot from Hawaii. When I was in kindergarten my family took a trip to Honolulu. While there, a man on the street asked if we wanted photos with his parrots. My sisters and I were jazzed up about it, so my parents said okay. The man had each of us holding a parrot, or a parrot sitting on our shoulder as my mom snapped some pics. Then the man asked my dad to kiss the parrot. My dad was not about this. He was not going to kiss the parrot, but to make my family happy and to get away from Parrot Man he did. And that's when the parrot chomped his lip. Blood and everything. To this day, over 10 years later, mention of the parrot will incite a 20-minute rant from my dad regarding parrot negligence, and then he gets so mad he has to go fix something in the garage. Do not bring up the parrot. Edit, thank you for the gold. For the sake of y'all kind strangers. I told my dad about his Reddit fame. He's proud to know there are so many of you against parrot negligence, and now he's off to fix something in the garage. I was always told by my family that my biological grandfather on mom's side died in a rock climbing accident right before mom was born. I found out last year that what actually happened was, while he was still attending a military college in the South in the 60s, my grandmother discovered that he liked to wear women's clothing after finding a box of dresses in his size in his closest. The next day, she came back to find him hanging from the ceiling, and she and 2 of her brothers had to smuggle his body out of the room and convince a coroner to rule it an accident. I'm honestly not even sure of who all in the family knows the truth, but anyone who does sure as hell doesn't talk about it. Edit, I really didn't expect this to blow up as much as it did. I want to thank everyone in their comments for their kind words and to clarify a few things. 1. Just for privacy's sake I'm not going to say what college this took place at. I feel a little guilty as is putting such a personal family story out on the internet without giving more identifying info on top of it. 2. To clarify, my grandmother found the dresses in his closet on campus, left out of shock or confusion, and then came back to his room on campus to find him dead. It didn't happen in their shared house or at her place. I apologize for the confusing wording. 3. In that time and place, and in the military as well as my religious, conservative family specifically suicide was beyond stigmatized, and any investigation into why my grandfather killed himself would have more than likely uncovered his secret and tarnished his memory in the community's eyes, hence the cover-up. 4. My mother was the one that told me this story, so I haven't heard it from the 3 people who were actually there, and probably never will. One of her brothers died before I was born, and my grandmother is suffering from a degenerative mental illness that has completely destroyed her memory. Not quite clear. Did he kill himself because your grandmother found his secret, Or was it just complete coincidence that his depression got the better of him the day after she did? I'm not entirely sure myself, and I'm sure being a military man from a deeply conservative Southern family he more than likely struggled with depression and his identity, but from the way it was described to me he killed himself because he couldn't live with the shame if his secret got out.